what's most interesting to me about this is when we think about let's start with desire. When we think about desire, we think of more of the spontaneous desire. Spontaneous desire is more common in men. Spontaneous desire is only present in about 15% of women. Women have what we call is responsive desire. So spontaneous desire is you've been married for 20 years. You see your partner get out of the shower for the 8,845th time, and you think to yourself, gosh, I would love to be intimate with this person. That's spontaneous desire. That's sort of desire in anticipation of intimacy. Responsive desire is you see your partner get out of the shower for the 8,645th time, and you think, did I sign up for the right treadmill tomorrow morning at 6 a.m.? And that's because your brain's just not there. It's not in the same place as your partner. But if your partner comes over and starts to rub your shoulders and rub your feet, or maybe has made dinner, we call chore play, which is where sort of emotional investments in the relationship can sometimes lead to responsive desire. Using lubrication, and we'll talk about how to use lube, using a vibrator, sort of creating an environment in which you are capable of being aroused. That's responsive desire. And thinking about what's happening in that circumstance can be really helpful and validating for women, and it can help their partners get them there too, with the ultimate goal of sort of being aligned in your sexual desire from a frequency perspective.
And so you're saying it's more typical that men experience spontaneous desire where arousal comes on in a moment.
In anticipation,
and often based on perhaps a visual cue.
Correct.
For women, that is less common.
Correct.
But not implausible.
Correct. And so acknowledging that, there's a few sort of lessons that we can take from that. The first is, if you're listening to this podcast and you want to work on your desire, if you're waiting for your husband to get a new shirt or a new Selby or anything, the visual stimulus is not evidence-based. Stop waiting for that. I want you to think about...
What about getting a new car? Does that...
I'd love one, but no. But just to be clear, I would love one. I want you to think about how you get responsive desire in response to arousal. And how we do that is lubrication. So we know how to use lube. Most of us do. You're in the act, you take some lubricant, you put it on the penis, you put it on the vagina, you have intercourse. I want to sort of encourage you to think about lube, potentially using it 30 minutes prior to intercourse. So I want you to take a silicone-based lube, and I'll tell you why in a moment. And I want you to think about using a lube shooter, which is a little droplet to take some of the lube and put it higher up in the vaginal canal. And then I want you to read a book, drink a cup of tea, wash your face. Women, as you sort of alluded to, are less visually stimulated into desire. There's great data that women like to read erotic literature, and there's great apps for that. Meet Rosie, Dipsia are great companies that have auditory or literature porn for women. There's great data that mindfulness can work for women. Lori Brotto wrote a book called Better Sex Through Mindfulness, thinking about breathing techniques, staying present in the moment. My favorite strategy for this is to describe to yourself in your head, not aloud, what's happening. My breathing is relaxing. My vagina feels wet. Sort of talking yourself through what's happening from a pathophysiologic perspective to bring yourself into the moment. But when we think about how to curate that arousal, essentially what you're doing is showing up at the party and then seeing what happens. And there's no expectations what happens at the party, but Emily Nagoski, who wrote Come As You Are, talks about, it's Friday night and you really want to put on your bathrobe and watch Love Island, but instead you're going to go to a party with your friends because you said you would, and you get there and it's actually kind of fun. So you stay and you have a good time, you have a drink, you actually like it when you're there. That's the sort of idea behind curating your own desire through arousal, which is use a vibrator, use some lubricant, relax, get in the moment, start to participate. And if you don't want to, obviously consent is of utmost importance, and stop. But if you sort of start participating and decide that you're happy that you're there and you like it, please stay and have a good time.
Okay, a lot of questions come up when you said all of those things. Let's start with the need for lubrication.